How's it going, you outlaw legends? And welcome into my in-depth review and analysis of patch 1.04 for GTA Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. News about the update actually released last week, with Rockstar announcing that the GTA Trilogy patches would be rolling out to all platforms sometime this week. Strangely enough though, the Nintendo Switch seemed to get one early, with PCs and the rest of the consoles having to wait until now. In this video, I'll be analysing and reviewing some of the more desirable changes that have been made, both based on my opinion and from the response that has been received from the Rockstar community in the last 24 hours or so. If you do find it useful, please show the video a kindness and tap the thumbs up button down below. If we head over to the official support page, we can check out all of the detailed patch notes. First up is a summary of general fixes that have been applied en masse to all three games, stating that we've got improved game performance, stability improvements, addressed issues relating to bugs when retrying a mission from a checkpoint, and fixes applied to a number of collision, texture, and signage problems. Then as we scroll down, we can get a detailed breakdown of everything the patch has to offer, starting with GTA 3 of course, and there's been a number of notable changes made here, quite a few that have been ignored as well, but we'll get onto that later. I'll be leaving these up on the screen while I discuss some of the changes for each game, but if you do want to read it all line for line, maybe just hit the pause button to give yourself plenty of time and read it at your own pace. Next up is Vice City, which honestly seemed to receive the least number of fixes out of all the three games. I know a large proportion of the community feels like Vice City is already close to complete and didn't really need them, but I don't know. I've had a lot of complaints from viewers in the comments about it, and I was kind of surprised to see that it hadn't been shown that much love. Finally is the biggest of the bunch, which is San Andreas, which had a whopping 18GB update when I booted up my PS5 shortly after the release. About 4 times the size of the other two games, which is absolutely staggering. Now normally you'd think, wow, what a massive patch. Surely the game must be fixed now, but unfortunately it's still lacking in a number of areas. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's take a look at some of the more positive things to come out of the most recent update. And the best way to do that is by having a look at GTA 3, which I feel has seen the best improvements overall. First of which you may or may not have noticed, but in the before side, Claude has a little pause before entering the car, whereas in the after side, he enters immediately. That's because a bug that required him to be standing completely still before hitting the enter vehicle command has now been fixed. And of course the other thing you can probably notice is the tail lights in vehicles have finally been fixed. Yep, prior to the patch only the brake lights would work, and the tail lights, which are meant to be on all of the time, just like tail lights in real life, simply didn't illuminate whatsoever. It might be small to some, but it was driving me and a lot of other people nuts, so I'm really glad to see that they fixed this. Next up, we've got some more fixes for Claude. Before the update, when you would look behind you, Claude would continue to face in the same direction, unlike in the original where his head would track wherever you were looking. Well, as you can see, that's been addressed as well, and thank God for that, because it was another one of those small things that really bothered me and the community. Last on the Claude agenda, and I know a lot of you will be happy about this one, he finally reacts to traffic and NPCs the way that he used to in the original game, going back to form and flipping people off left, right and centre. This one I actually felt was quite important, and it's something that a number of viewers had brought up to me as well. In GTA 3, Claude doesn't talk, he's a silent protagonist, and his colourful hand gestures I always felt went a long way towards providing him with that zest and personality where he would otherwise wouldn't have had much, or very little anyway. So this is one of the biggest changes for me. I'm really stoked that they finally got onto this. Unfortunately though, it's not all peaches and cream on the GTA front. One of the things that the patch notes specified is that the KJAR radio station logo had been fixed, which is true. The problem is that the rest of them still aren't right. I knew they looked a little off, but after speaking to someone on Twitter, they pointed out that they are in fact the same logos as the ones from Liberty City Stories. So yeah, 1 down, 8 to go I guess. And as much as they said that there had been texture and environment fixes, it's a shame to still see and come across glitchy messes like this, especially considering that they've been there from the very beginning. I'm always happy to see patches for these games, but sites like this show that they've still got a long way to go. Most of the changes to Vice City were minimal texture and collision issues. Unfortunately though, not all of them have been fixed, as you can see in this screenshot. This has been an ongoing problem with all three games, and I really hope that they get a lid on it soon. So many images like this are circulating social media in the last day or so, and it's really truly a shame to see. On the plus side of the Vice City world, they have at least added a new tourism sign on the highway here. Originally they'd reused a sign from GTA 3, and the render on it just looked terrible and it stuck out like a sore thumb honestly. And I believe it's even changed a couple of times since then, and it really never looked right. So I'm glad to see that it's been replaced with this one and it's looking a lot better. And also the invisible wall that was surrounding the playable area and stopping you from going too far off map has now been removed. It still looks kind of weird, but at least they got rid of the boundary. Moving on to San Andreas, and it seems that not only have a number of old bugs not been fixed, but the update has released a number of new bugs as well, which is always fun. Most notably is the removal of several road markings from around the map, as displayed here. How in the hell has this happened? I have no idea, but it looks all kinds of jacked up, especially since it's new. It feels like bloody 1 step forward, 2 steps back with the trilogy lately. Kind of annoying, not gonna lie. On the plus side, there has been a number of improvements to textures, clothing and hairstyles, which for anyone playing from day one knows the game desperately needed. First on the agenda is clothing improvements, as illustrated by this comparison of CJ's jeans provided by Videotech on Twitter. As you can see here, they've been redesigned and are no longer the low-res mess that they were before, and are actually now looking quite respectable. As for haircut improvements, we've got a couple. The high afro is back looking like it should, with the correct parts around the sides now shaved off as they're meant to be, making it look a lot better overall. And the same deal for the high fade over here as well, which at the start seemed to really just mimic CJ's stock hair and didn't really bring much to the table at all. Granted, it still might not be the best looking haircut around, but now at least it has a little distinction. Probably the biggest bug fix I've heard of in regard to San Andreas is to do with the glitch that was stopping players from completing 100%. Originally, it was prohibiting people from saving their game after finishing one of the stadium events, all of which are required for total game completion. So this is huge really. 100% is no joke, and with players discovering this after investing all of that time, well, understandably they weren't too happy about it, so I was incredibly relieved to hear that the problem has now been fixed. Finally, we're going to have a look at the performance improvements that were made. For many people in the community, this was the highlight of the update, and one I was looking forward to testing out. People had said frame rates had stabilised and that stuttering had almost completely been resolved. I was so happy to hear this. Constant stuttering and frame drops have slowly become my most hated aspect of the trilogy. The fact that these old titles have had so much trouble running consistently on the modern hardware that's now available is honestly maddening. Elated that this might be fixed, I jumped onto my PS5 to test it out. I chose San Fierro because it always gave me a lot of frame drops, and as you can see here, things have definitely improved. Frame rates on the right are undeniably more stable, but it's still not perfect, and there's still the occasional stutter as well, which I found quite annoying. One of the areas that was the worst for these performance issues was Red County, and I must admit, I could notice a pretty tangible improvement here. Frame rates have stabilised massively, but I'm still getting the occasional dip, followed by some pretty big stuttering, like I was troubled with before the patch. Again, I'm glad to have some improvement here, it's all a step in the right direction, but what I want more than anything after all of this time is just a stable damn 60 FPS without drops or stutters, which I feel really shouldn't be too much to ask, right? But unfortunately it seems like we're going to have to wait a while longer for it to be resolved completely. But that'll pretty much be a wrap for today's video everyone. I wish I had a whirlwind of good news for you, but with this update it's kind of about halfway there. To those of you that have stuck by the trilogy from the very beginning, how are you feeling about the whole thing? Are you growing impatient with it like I am, or are you happy to wait it out until it's completely fixed? And to those of you that might still be on the fence about purchasing or playing it, let me know your thoughts as well. Have the patches in the last few months helped convince you to go out and buy it, or are you still uncertain? Honestly, at this point, I'd say it's still probably worth waiting. The games are definitely improving, and with more patches promised for the future, I feel things will only go up from here. But with that being said, there's still a lot of work to be done, and I'm not sure it's worth the money for anyone who isn't already invested in the series. Not yet, anyway. However, if you did find my video useful, please make sure that you hit the thumbs up button down below, and if by any chance you are new around here, definitely think about subscribing as well. I'm a Rockstar Games exclusive channel, and I'll be covering all GTA Trilogy related news and updates. Until we meet again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Red Nitrate, and I'll catch you all on the next one.